Hey, cool Andrew.
Yeah, what's up?
I got an idea for a podcast for you.
Oh yeah? What's that?
So, my idea would be that, and maybe this is kind of both of our idea here, is that we have a podcast where we just kind of pitch podcasts to one another. Maybe take some audience suggestions for podcasts. Just try to flesh out what would make a podcast cool and unique.
90% of the communication between us isn't like, hey, are you ready to go live with a stream? 90% is, wouldn't it be cool if we did a podcast about X? And then we never do.
Yeah.
And then we decided, what if we just took this chat log and turned it into a podcast? Because if we can't monetize and make content out of our private DMs, what the fuck are we doing talking to each other?
Exactly. We may be hard to decide what to monetize, but indecision is a great way for monetization.
Exactly. So I'm excited to go live with this podcast idea with you. It's a podcast where we pitch podcasts to each other and then figure out why we shouldn't make that podcast, and then we never revisit it.
And so okay, so this one, here's my thought process.
What's your thought process?
We will have the show. We won't go over like 30 minutes. We'll be tight. It'll be short. It's going to be relaxing. It'll be a fun time. We'll come up with great ideas and then kind of throw them out into the void, and people will make them, and they'll send us a dividend. Any person who takes a podcast.
If you make a podcast out of this, you owe us royalties. Absolutely.
It's not a big one. It's like 0.5%. We'll get like $5 every year, but
that adds
we
up.
know how much podcasts make. Exactly, enough of these land. It'll be great.
Exactly. Yeah, perfect. After like 6 months, we'll start the first official pod jam, where people it's like a game jam, but you make a podcast pilot instead.
That's
I'm
not
sure
a bad
someone's
idea.
done
Actually,
shit. Has anyone TM? That belongs to us.
TM. That one's not out. That one's not shareable. Well, for this great idea, Andrew, I have some pitches that I want to immediately kind of bring you for the names here.
Yeah, I got a list of pitches for the names as well. My first name is one. I'm going to go first because I've got because I'm saying that I am. But because I have a title that I think really sums up what we're doing here and really gets to the audience across what we're doing. And that title that I have is Cool Games Inc., but for podcasts, and neither of us is secretly a sex pervert. I think that is a good title. I think it's short, it's sweet, it gets across what we're doing here.
Short?
It's sweet.
It is sweet. It feels nice. But like I think it's got a little bit too much length to it. I like how informative it is because as we know, there's nothing more important than SEO, and what that means is just have a million tags and eventually somebody will stumble across your work. Maybe.
And with SEO in mind, it's going to be great because eventually you'll Google search Cool Games Inc. because you'll have heard that there was a really good podcast, and then you'll see two results. One will be Cool Games Inc., and then the other one will be Cool Games Inc., but for podcasts, and neither of us is secretly a sex pervert. That's just good SEO on its own. That
tells you everything. Like, oh, I shouldn't listen to that podcast. I heard it was good because it is actually hurts to listen to,
and it's not for podcasts. So And podcasts are better than video games, so that's just objective fact.
I've got some tighter, a little bit shorter suggestions. Let me hit you with this. I've the podcast pilot project that's got like some boop boop boop. It's got alliteration, which is one of my favorite things in titles. But
the PPP.
it is PPP, and it's quick. It rolls off the tongue. It really gets across what we're doing here. Either podcast pilot project or the podcast pitch project. Those are kind of interchangeable.
Why not just podcast pilot pitch project?
The podcast pilot pitch project.
The pitch perfect project pirate pitch perfect.
The pitch perfect project pilot. The pitch perfect podcast The pitch perfect podcast pilot pitch project.
Yeah, the best thing about a podcast title is if you can't say it.
Exactly. If it deals you 2d6 psychic damage whenever you open your mouth.
I'll write that down.
What about,
with that in mind, What about the podcast pitchers pitch a pod of podcast pitches?
Podcast pitchers pitch a pod of podcast pitches? That
Yes.
is, I like that. I like that. The podcast pitchers pitch a pod of podcast pitches. Okay. That also does that similar thing of rolling off the tongue in a way that harms you. And I like that. I like that. I'll write these down. I'm writing both these down.
I do. I want this podcast should harm us. I think is I think that should be built into the process.
Listen, I'm coming right off of Never Believe It, so this podcast should deal some amount of damage to both the creators and the listeners.
Absolutely.
Do you have another title?
Do I have another one? Yeah. Okay, I got one. I went on. I looked up phrases with God in it. And there are some that are good. We've got one that I really like is based off a documentary. If Pod is willing and the creek don't rise.
Now, what do you mean? Can you elaborate on that?
Well, so the only times that we can really record this is if the podcast is willing to exist, which is us willing it into existence, and we can't podcast during floods.
We can't.
So
what about a flood stops you from podcasting?
Mostly the water.
Okay. Now I live in an apartment building, so I'm five stories up, so I'm pretty safe from water unless something terrible has happened.
See, I'm on the first floor, which means it is a constant concern.
You got a sump pump?
I do not know. I rent this place. Judging by the timeliness of our landlords to fix everything else,
maybe. Okay, so I like the kind of direction you just went with the podcasts and the floods. So I kind of went in a similar direction for one of mine, which was All Hope Abandon, Ye Who Podcast Here.
Ooh.
It's melancholic. It's thought provoking. What does it mean?
I like it when people take phrases and then say them like a little out of order. So like All Hope Abandon is way cooler than Abandon All Hope.
So I'm if you consider that, keep that in your bones. Think about that. What you got one? Do you got one to throw back?
There, but for the grace of Pod, go we.
I like that a lot. That one, there, but for the grace of Pod, go we. For the grace of Pod, go we. Sorry, I'm typing it down because I am keeping a list of the ones that I think we are reacting best to.
Okay.
Elaborate on your what you want that to say about us.
I think it sounds neat. We get that other out of order thing with by the grace of Pod, go we. I like that. That one sounds good. I like having but for in the title. You know what a but for is, right?
It's like when there are 4 cheeks instead of 2.
I was trying to trick you so I could say it's for farting. But your answer's way better.
You can't beat me on butt humor. My house is butt humor. We live like this.
I've also got, Pod is good.
Pod is good. Pod is good is cool. I worry about the crossover with Pod of Greed, which is the Yu-Gi-Oh podcast that I've been on before.
That's fair.
What about this? What about I'm opening up my notes app again. When the pitch is just right and the host's got some time, that's a podcast.
I like that.
There's also here I have the Better Podcast Bureau. This kind of imparts some sort of importance to ourselves. It kind of says that we are the people that are coming out with the better podcasts, not your run of the mill podcast that any hooligan can go make. We're making only the finest.
I need to remove a word from that and make it better.
We've
got the Better Podcast Bureau.
The Better Podcast Bro. Now, see, I've done this before.
Oh, you know what? You're right. I'm getting a little too close to home for that, aren't I?
See, I just had this conversation with Never Believe It, where one of my friends was like, "What if we pretended Riley was replaced with a doppelganger?" I was like, "Guys, I love where your heart's at, but unfortunately, I've already done the doppelganger."
I already killed my double. Y'all need to get on my level.
Yeah. Also, why is it always me?
Well, speaking of ARGs, I don't want to lean too hard on my my past. I do have pod seed fragments as a as an option off of the God seed fragment in This Is My Milwaukee.
I like that, but when you said ARG, my brain immediately went to every pod hybrid. I'm gonna put pod seed fragment down.
Because the thing I like about that one is that we're just getting little seeds of podcasts, and they're just little fragments of podcasts. And if we
We're
needed
like pod
to,
cultivators.
yeah, if we needed to, we could probably use the podcast to kill God.
We could, which is the most important thing I want to do with any of my podcasts.
Yeah.
What about and this is one I really like actually, because I want to dig into the podcast minds. Because when you're getting ready and you're like, I got to go back into the podcast minds, I got to go back into the content minds, but like you stroll in, we are the two miners, we are the surveyors. We go down into these mines with our picks and our tools, and we hack away at the walls to find the gems and the diamonds and the gold that lays within these hills.
I actually really like the podcast minds.
Yes.
Has anyone done it yet? That's such a like.
It feels like something someone would have done. Like the podcast minds. 1 second, I need to yell at Google. Stop!
Top 10 mining podcasts you must follow in 2020.
There's Mining Minds. I don't think the Podcast Minds is a name. I'm putting it down. We might have right now.
We might have found it.
We might. But
I do want to keep going.
I'll put a star emoji next to this just for posterity's sake here.
I like that.
Talk to me. What's another one on your list?
Sure. So also on my list, I do have Pod Save America, but we're using the title for a good podcast.
Now, see, I had Podcastica, which was because I also wanted to do a pod destroy, maybe Pod Kills America.
Oh, I don't know if I like that. I don't want to get any heat for this podcast, which I'm already doing by insulting a McElroy show straight off the bat. That's in the first 2 minutes.
We didn't insult one of their shows. We insulted a sex pest that they used to be friends with that they have since distanced themselves from.
Correct.
Another idea I had was pod sourcing. Since we're crowdsourcing ideas at some points. We're taking ideas from listeners to kind of dig into and really figure out what they have, what kind of nuggets of interesting. We're pod sourcing these podcasts.
Okay, I do like that. I like that. What about Now That's Podcasting?
Now That's Podcasting is very good because that sets us up for that has to be a Star Wars show, right? That has to
exist. Yeah.
Now That's Podcasting. Now that is Podcasting Archives. They've been releasing in March. Yep. They're called Now This Is Podcasting.
Yeah, that's not the quote. There's also Now That's What I Call Podcasting 1 through 25. There's also Now Podcasting from PBS, which really cuts out the middleman.
It lets you know the important information. It lets you know what is it? Podcasting. When is it? Now. Okay. All right.
What else is on your list? I got a couple more.
I got a few more too. I'm glad we're getting as much out of this as we can. I got Pitch Me a Podcast, which is just kind of the quick, like, if we were sponsored by NPR, which I know that, they're a follower of yours.
Yeah, we'll get there eventually.
like we'd be called Pitch Me a Podcast, and we'd have Peter Sagal on or something.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you, everyone who lives in who has a parent that listens to NPR just popped for that joke. So just trust me. Trust me on that one, okay?
I got down here. Now pod bless the broken road that led me straight to cast.
How many of these are just the pod but God but pod jokes?
I don't want to admit that. So I'm going to refuse to acknowledge your question.
When you look down that and there were one set of footprints, one track of podcasts, that's when Craig was carrying you. Hold on.
Look, if we're not doing light blasphemy with the naming of our podcast, I don't want to do it. That's kind of where I am.
What if we did light blasphemy with the subtitle? What if we had a title-subtitle combination here?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. Go
So say pod. We do hot pod, not bad. Hot pod, not bad, but doesn't like describe what we're doing.
Pod, wait, pod. Pod, no pod, wait, pod.
Wait, don't pod me. What if we did the Podcast Minds, the Pitch Perfect Podcast Pilot Pitch Project? Or Podcast Minds, there but for the grace of pod go we.
I kind of like that. That's got a nice ring to it.
That has the whole thing. That gets our blasphemy, our heretic senses. That gets the kind of quick title. That gets the fun subtitle. That gets everything. It's a little bit too complicated to say. Is that what we want?
So hear me out with this next one.
Okay.
So now you might not like this one because I think that it is kind of centering me. And I But this title is Are You There, Pod? It's me, Andrew, and also Riley is here.
That's really good. I grew up with basically an older brother, so I'm used to I play second player quite often. So that title works for me. So if we have the Podcast Minds, or Are You There, Pod? It's me, Andrew, and also Riley is here. Or Are You There, Pod? It's me, Andrew, and friends. It's even funnier.
Andrew and company.
I want to put it up in a competition because I want to entertain it. I know that the Podcast Minds there, but for the grace of pod go we will beat that. But
yes,
I want
maybe, yeah, maybe Are You There, Pod? It's me, Andrew, and also Riley is here is the name of our first episode.
I think that's good. I think we've come up with a great idea for a show. I think we've come up with a great title at this point and a great episode title, which is rare. We're already crushing it.
Yeah.
And so I think that then what happens next is we get some either some audience suggestions or we ourselves come up with suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
And we start pitching some podcasts.
Yeah, I think that we start our next episode will be us. Do we want to pitch each other ideas in the episode, or do we want it to be like next week I come to you with a list of podcasts we can do, and then we pick one together and do like a mini pilot?
I think we can both in my brain we both come with lists and we kind of go through the titles or the premises and we figure out like which in these are things that like does anything jump out at us? Is there any like golden nugget hidden within these hills? And then you and I, the miners, will go in there and pluck it out and go, what does this mean? What is this idea here? And we'll slowly break it apart and then expound upon it. And like maybe we'll follow some different paths a little bit. We'll try out a few nuggets, see which vein goes deepest. But when we find the vein, we just really break into it, you know?
I like this. I like that idea a lot. I think that works.
Yeah, and for audience for folks listening, what I want from you is to tweet at me and Andrew. You'll get our tags in a minute with the hashtag with the I guess it's podcast minds, right? Because we don't want them to type out there, but for the grace of pod go we.
I kind of want the hashtag to be there, but for the grace of pod go we.
Yeah, I if you don't have to hashtag it, we both have TweetDeck. I'll just put up a search for there, but for the grace of pod go we. Because who else is going to say that?
If you do that, or just hashtag podcast minds, one of the two, up to you. Mm-hmm, I will take it more seriously if you include the full title. Full stop.
We'll go over. You message us either a premise or a title, not both. Not both.
Absolutely not both.
I will discard any and probably block you.
Send us a title or send us a title or a premise, and we will fill in the other and present it to each other.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we will make it work, and I think that's it. I think that's the concept of this podcast. I think that is the concept of future podcasts. And I think we got gold on our hands.
I think we do. I think this is perfect. Good work, Riley.
Good work, Andrew.
If you want to give us suggestions, you can find me on Twitter. I am at AC Sherman Writes. Mm-hmm. Actually, hold on. Ooh. I'm going to redo that because I'm done with this handle.
Oh, Halo Hottie's coming back.
No, I want to see if... The problem is, I don't know if you know this about me, Riley. I don't write. I don't remember the last time I've written anything. Who the hell took AC Sherman?
What about AC Sherman games?
AC Sherman pods.
AC Sherman pods. AC Sherman. Hi, welcome to the second half of this episode where we pitch Andrew different new handles. AC Sherman args.
No, I don't want that to be my legacy.
Mm-hmm.
There's Pods Sherman is a suggestion from Twitter.
I hate that.
Pods Andrew. You can find me on Twitter. We'll link it in the show notes.
I'm just gonna be thinking about this as we go through playing XCOM. You can find me on Twitter at Rev Rybread. That's Rev like Reverend, Rye bread like rye bread. And you'll be able to fucking. And if you like the two of us, if you like our dynamic, you can catch us on Thursday nights at twitter.com. Twitter.tv? What is Twitter? Not Twitter.
It's
Twitch.
It's twitch.tv/AC Sherman.
Yep, you'll be able to catch us there playing tactics games for Thursday Night Tactics. But that's what we have today. I look forward to your suggestions. Bye.
Bye.
We'll come up with something.
It's time to punch out. Time to hang up our helmets.
It's time to hang up our helmets and punch out.
I'll do that in a second, but I want to let you know you're not talking to regular Andrew today. You're talking to cool Andrew.
Ooh, oh, cool! I heard you say you had a cool day, but I didn't realize. I was looking at a whole new persona. What's cool Andrew like?
So cool Andrew is very chill and very relaxed, except for one thing that really nags at him. And the thing that really nags at cool Andrew is that he doesn't know where his glasses went. Which means that I'm sitting around in prescription Ray-Ban sunglasses all day, looking real cool.
So Cool Andrew's just sunglasses inside, possibly for the rest of your life.
Yep. Cool Andrew remembers to take off his sunglasses as he's hitting accept on work calls, because he doesn't want to explain it to people. And it's much easier to explain, I just don't have my glasses on, than it is to explain, I'm wearing sunglasses inside at work.
How bad is your vision, Cool Andrew?
Oh, my vision's real cool. No, my vision is absolute garbage. I have one eye is nearsighted, the other eye is farsighted, and
got
my
both
right
bases covered.
Yeah, and my right eye has an astigmatism that makes optometry students go, ooh. Is a thing that literally happened to me once. So I can barely see without my glasses.
I've been in that same boat where you've been hanging out, having a good time, and then suddenly you hear you're at the eye doctor's office, and they're like, "Do you mind if I call some students in here just to take a look at this?" I don't know when they're gonna get a chance to see this again, and you're like, "Okay."
I tell them ahead of time. I'm like, "Hey, bring in an audience before we start, because you're gonna have some weird charts."
Yep, my keratoconus means my eyes basically have like a little nipple on them, but that's just the cornea. Just a little bump right in the middle.
Huh. I've never heard of that before.
It's constantly degrading, and so that's why I wear glass contacts to hold them in place like a brace.
Fun. Aren't eyes dope?
Aren't eyes fun? I love to be held hostage by my senses.
Well, this is why we do podcasts instead of videos. Because fuck eyeballs.
Exactly. I want to make content that I can listen to in the future when I'm blind.
Friendship with eyes are over. Best friendship with ears is now starting.
Oh, are we okay? All right, Cool Andrew. Well then,
yeah.
In that case,